complete revolution. We figured out a way. We machined all of the surfaces to create something that's genuinely new. You have to start again. Unapologetically plastic. Aluminium.
Welcome to episode 1 of the Aluminium podcast, Apple News with a British accent. Every week I'll be joined by a different guest from the world of tech and beyond, bringing you the latest Apple and wider technology news, as well as insight into our guests and their stories and technology. So, for our first episode, I'm delighted to welcome our guest, David Lewis.
Hello, Dave. Hey, how are you doing?
Very, very well. Thank you for joining me. Dave, we've chatted in the past a little bit on your podcast, so I thought it was only right that I invited you over. You've also got the British accent, which is going to be very important.
I've mastered the British accent. Really good, really good. Yeah, it was, I'm not going to lie, you know, you read on Twitter about how everything's always fantastic, it going guns blazing. The first couple of days this year, I just couldn't be bothered to get out of bed. I really struggled. But that was because there was a few days of switching off and mentally just doing nothing. But now back into the swing of it and loving it. Yeah, all good.
Yeah, I mean, there's always that time as well between Christmas and New Year, which I like to think of as the perineum of the year. It's between the two good bits, and nobody really knows what's going on.
No other podcast is going to say perineum.
Not this early on, not in episode 1. Anyway, so the kind of format that I've got in mind is I've got a couple of questions I want to ask you, just so that anyone that's not heard of you before can get a little bit of an idea of what you're about. So the first one is Xbox or PlayStation?
Never gamed in my life.
Cool.
Shall I leave now?
That's a legitimate answer.
I wish I had. I mean, I am ancient, which kind of means I was at school as my mates were kind of playing Pac-Man in the train station and stuff, and it just never held any appeal for me because I missed out on that early thing. I just don't think I've never picked up a Xbox, PlayStation, handheld. I've zero gaming knowledge. I know slightly more about football and gaming, and I know nothing about either. So
okay, so next up, Windows or Mac?
Now, I haven't used... There was a vaguely funny story I can give... In answer, Mac. If you just want a one-word answer and we can move on, Mac. But there is stories I can tell you to do with that as well.
No, go for it.
Well, I so desperately wanted to be a Mac user back in about 2010. I had this PC thing with 2 monitors, and I actually managed to find the Mac desktop screen to put on the PCs to pretend. And I was a grown man at this point. You know, we're not talking about a kid. I mean, I would that desperately want to be part of the Mac brigade that I just thought, have the screensaver. That's halfway there. And there was one other time I had to go and sign some paperwork for my daughter's getting a car and organising finance, and it was on a PC, and they gave me this PC mouse, and I just froze. I had no idea about the scroll wheel, and it was just so alien to me. So I am as pure Mac as you can possibly wish to find.
Ah, very good, very good. Next up, I mean, this one might actually be more tricky for you. Android or iOS?
Oh, no. I've tried Android now, and I put out a video last week saying that I've tried it, but I am a through and through iOS user, and the 15 Pro Max, I know we might be talking about that later on, but it's made me realise just how good it is, and I might even buy an iPad this year as well.
Ooh, very
Possibly.
exciting.
So definitely, yeah, I love it. I couldn't be more happy with the setup I've got than I am at the moment.
Good stuff. Tea or coffee?
Coffee. Haven't drunk tea in 30, 40 years.
That's okay. We can stay friends.
Just had an Americano before this to see me through because I didn't know what you were going to throw at me.
Good. And the final one, YouTube or podcast?
So when you say YouTube or podcast, are you meaning watching podcasts on YouTube or listening to podcasts?
I'm saying, do you prefer like the long form of podcast and do stuff at the same time, or actively watching something on YouTube?
I probably, like most of us that are on there, live on YouTube. So when I'm not making it, I'm watching it, and I really got into the long form. Yeah, there's a couple of long form, hour plus, the Colin Samirs kind of thing that I'm really into. And I've said that they've almost replaced chat shows now, and it's just great to watch two guys having a chat. I love the long form podcasts. Absolutely adore them.
Cool. So hopefully that's given everyone a little bit of an idea of what Dave's about. And we'll get into some tech news, because that is kind of what we're here for officially.
Very exciting. Week one of this new podcast.
Yeah, it's very, very exciting, and I have no idea what we're going to do yet. So I've got some notes. We're going to start off with what you suggested, actually, before we started here. So you have you've got a background in radio and audio stuff, and you've gone along the lines of using proper cameras and stuff for your YouTube, but recently you've been using the 15 Pro Max for some of your videos. Tell me about your experience.
So, long story short, when I started the channel off, I was using, the only camera I had was an iPhone 12, bog standard 12. And if you look back at those early videos, you can sure as hell see it wasn't a 12 Pro. But it got me going, and that's what they would say, if the best camera you got is the one you've got. So that got me going. Then I know another guest that you potentially might be speaking to, Alex. Me and him do a podcast together, and I was at his studio, and he had this Canon 90D that he had on his table ready to put on eBay. And I said, I'm really thinking about upgrading my camera. Now, putting into context, about 2 months before that, I just bought the 14 Pro, thinking, right, it's a big step up from the 12. Go to the 14 Pro. I bought with a terabyte of storage on, because I was going to shoot in ProRes, not realising that you couldn't get ProRes files off of the phone when you only had Lightning. It was slightly a bit of a failed story trying to shoot ProRes on those. But then, not long after buying that 14 Pro, I bought the Canon. So for most of last year, I was shooting on the Canon. Then I had this idea, and I was, hands up, totally influenced by the fantastic marketing that was Scary Fast, when they shot the whole thing, and suddenly they were all being shot on iPhone all over our videos. And I thought, well, I've got to give this a go. You know, if they can do it, okay, they've got the might of Apple and the world's best engineers behind them. But I thought, if they can do it, I can do it. So I kind of taught myself how to edit log, ProRes, and I did the last 3 or 4 videos last year on the 15 Pro Max. Got some really nice comments. Last week's video I did on a Canon, and people noticed that it wasn't sharp. That just goes to show that it's not a marketing. I didn't say what I was shooting on, but people have the colour and the sharpness on that you're able to manage to achieve in post is just stunning. I mean, they are big files, but the fact it goes straight to SSD, and the thing that I like most about it, when they said that at the event, it would go straight to SSD, I thought there'd be all sorts of weird configurations you have to do, but you don't. You just plug in the drive, it sees it. I used the Blackmagic app, which they did as well, but honestly, there is no going back. It is just beautiful. Yeah,
to be fair, the Blackmagic app is one that I shouted out on my video today, or yesterday at the time of actually publishing this. But yeah, it seems like that's a really good app. I think, is it Filmic that's been sort of depreciated recently, which is a little bit sad.
I used to use Filmic when I first got into trying to, because when I started the channel, I'd never opened a video editing program. So about 2 months, 3 months beforehand, trying to get ready, I was in this, rabbit warren and trying to learn everything about it. And I downloaded the Filmic Pro app. But yeah, this is far easier to use. It's honestly, once I've got the settings down, and let's face it, most of the time we're all shooting in the same environment. And once you're in that environment, getting the white balance and everything set, it's just plug and play. And that Blackmagic app, how it's free, I don't know. And also, if anyone is interested, the best colour conversion that I've found is the Blackmagic one. I just downloaded it, airdropped it from the phone over to the Mac, and that's what I use in Premiere now. Sorry, I'm not Final Cut. But the Blackmagic conversion back to Rec 709 is just brilliant. Best by far.
The only reason that I can imagine it's free is because Blackmagic also make DaVinci Resolve, right? I guess the software stuff that they do is all to try and get people down the rabbit hole of understanding what to do with their cameras when you eventually graduate to them. But I have a similar story to you. You know, I started off shooting my channel on a Lumix G7. I think it was a cropped 4:3 frame, I don't know, 4/3, whatever they're called. I don't get cameras. And then moved over to the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and my videos looked better immediately, and it was so much easier because I could airdrop it. And now, I guess, with the USB-C stuff, I was never excited about USB-C coming, but I think there are advantages to it that actually exist, so I'm warming to it. When I get to this September, I'll be upgrading.
Yeah, when the USB-C for me for charging makes no difference. And also, I know you and I've seen tweets of yours, but I've still got AirPods Max, I've still got the keyboard, the Magic Mouse. You know, I just bought a new iMac, and of course that's still Lightning. So the Lightning cable isn't going anywhere from my desk. It's going to be around for a long time. So the fact it's USB-C on the iPhone doesn't matter a lot unless you're shooting ProRes log. Because, as I mentioned, when it was Lightning, if you were shooting ProRes and you've got a 60 gig file, it's virtually impossible. Certainly it won't airdrop. The only way I found to get it to transfer was using the Lightning cable and image capture on the Mac. But you could go and cook Christmas dinner while it was downloading. It took so long. So I just never used it. It was pointless. You know, they kind of proved what they could do, but it wasn't usable. Whereas now, I bought a Samsung T7 SSD because it was the exact same transfer speeds as the phone, and it's been a dream. Honestly, it just records straight into it, plug it into Mac and you're off, and it edits so fast. It's brilliant what they've done.
No, it does sound pretty good. I'm going to have to play around with it soon. Right, next up on my list, I'm going to just jump around a little bit. I think we're going to talk about the Vision Pro, and it's very strange, very strange announcement this week. I mean, I was watching, the first I knew about it was actually Tim Cook's tweet. And I think I saw it 55 seconds after the tweet, but the newsroom post had been up for about 18 minutes, and nobody had even mentioned it on Twitter yet, because nobody was expecting it that day, and it was very... What's your thoughts on this? Are they trying to hide it? Are they burying it?
Do you know, I was listening to something else just before we started recording, and it was talking about, are Apple going to do a Pro Vision halftime ad in the Super Bowl? Because, of course, the Super Bowl halftime is theirs now. And there was this thought, well, Mac's 40 years old this year, I think it is. And so, you know, while they're going to do a whole retro thing with the Vision Pro, it was odd. I think they know that it's a lost leader. So, like you, because we make content, I was really hoping it was going to be an event. But you can understand when you look at it that there's not an event. At WWDC, they kind of played down fitness. And fitness hasn't been mentioned, I don't think. And gaming is really a few games from arcade. None of the big games are on there yet. So the areas that people are really keen about aren't ready yet. And I think they're doing this soft launch where they're just getting it out there, getting Vision OS, the first version of Vision software, OS 1. I think they're trying to just get that out into the market, let a few little glitches happen, and let things bed down. I think at WWDC this summer, we'll probably get 0.2, and that's where things will really start to get going. But it's not going to be a cash cow for them, which I know sounds ridiculous at $3,500. But you and I both know the volumes are low. I think it works out that there's 273 stores in the US. So I think they're only getting possibly about 1,800 each for the year. You know, the volumes are very, very low. So I think they're just testing the water a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I heard that their expectation was to sell one Vision Pro per day per store in the US.
Yeah, exactly that.
So, you know, that's 350 a store. Obviously, there'll be some online sales and things like that. And it's only launching in the US at the beginning. I think probably by WWDC we might see it in the UK, which would be great. US, Canada, UK, Germany seems to always get things fairly early as well.
China, I guess, yeah.
I don't even know if China will get it that early. I think there might be a lot of stuff to deal with for that.
A question to throw back at you, if I can be poacher turned gamekeeper. I was wondering what's going to happen in store. Now, as much as Apple are brilliant at trying to get all of their staff trained, ready for the moment, no one quite knows what this is going to be like. I just wonder whether there's going to be a massive bottleneck, because I think you can book your fitting appointment online, but then you have to go to store. But it's a really precise fitting procedure, and you would have thought early on, and there's always going to be something that's different with everybody's unit. And if you're in there spending $3,500, you're going to want to be treated like a king for the day, aren't you? So I just wondered, how do you think they're going to manage the footfall and the flow of it?
I don't think it's actually as intricate as we thought originally, because the Vision Pro is now shipping with two different light shields. It comes with two straps.
Two straps, yeah.
I don't think there's actually as much difference as there was expected to be. I think the only real customization is going to be with those ICE lenses, which apparently a little bit cheaper than everyone expected. So $150 to get the prescription lenses, or $99 if it's like a standard reader style.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I don't think that's exceptionally expensive. I think if you wear glasses, you're kind of used to this. I don't know if we can get those lenses on the NHS over here. That'd be lovely, wouldn't it?
Would it just? Yeah. Seems a slight oxymoron. Can I have some inserts on my £3,500 headset on the NHS, please? Thank you very much. I pay taxes.
I would like to sort of point out as well, everyone keeps sort of pointing to this 3,500. That is also the starting point for an M2 or M3 Max 16-inch MacBook Pro. It's not an insane amount of money for Apple customers. It's an expensive headset. The standard being, around that 500 point, but it is very different to what we've got.
Exactly. I was going to say, when you go and spend £3,500 on a Mac, you know what you're getting and you know how to use it. We've got to teach ourselves. The way back in our day, we got used to texting and scrolling and looking down all the time. There's going to be a whole new way of interacting with this headset now. This whole pinching in midair, and it's a whole new language we've got to learn. So, if I was going to spend £3,500, I'd rather spend it on something I'm comfortable with. And wait for things to settle down a bit. I mean, I love the idea of it, as and when it comes over, and it comes down to money. I haven't got that sort of money to throw at it, and as we just said, I'm not a gamer. Now, I'm not saying it's only for gaming. I know it is a productive headset as well, but like you, I spend a lot of my time making content, and I don't think I'd like to try and do video editing in midair.
Yeah, I don't really know how that's going to work, but I know of people that have seen Final Cut running on it. And it's not Final Cut for iPad, it is Final Cut for Vision. It is its specific version. So that's on the way, we know. Whether it's going to be ready for prime time straight away or not, I don't know. I'm still kind of stunned that they didn't put an M3 into it, because the M3's out now.
You've mentioned that so many times, I know. It does seem weird, doesn't it? Their flagship device of this year is actually using the older chip.
Yeah. We've kind of heard that it's going to have 16 gigs of RAM starting point, which is, okay. We don't know if that's enough yet until we play with it. And it's got 256 gigs of storage, and we don't know if that's enough yet either.
No other storage options are there, which I guess they're thinking price. They don't want to scare people off anymore.
I believe it's... No, because it starts at 256. I thought
it was only one storage. Yeah, I think it's... At the start, I thought I read Gurman saying it's only 256 you can buy right now.
Okay.
I think.
My understanding was it starts at 256 gigs of storage, and if it does go up, then 512 I would assume will be the same difference as with Mac, so it'll be $200 to upgrade. At which point, when you're talking about 3,500 plus 200, you're probably going to do that. Yeah, it's just we don't know if 256 is going to be enough, because is it like 256 on a phone, which is plenty, or 256 on a Mac, which probably isn't for a lot of people. And it depends how much stuff you're going to store on it. If you're going to wear it on a plane for flights and you want to watch spatial movies all the way through, you're going to want to load it up.
Download. And the other thing that I haven't fully got my head around yet, I know I've just switched it on the 15 Pro Max that I can now shoot in spatial if I want to. Obviously pointless to me because I'm not getting the headset, but the video, the files are huge. Those photo files are massive. So if you're putting a load of photos on there, that sort of size, I think it's something, I did hear the data, it's massive files. So again, that is going to be a storage issue as well, I would have thought.
It shoots 1080p, right, for the spatial videos, so surely it should be 2 1080p files. It's one for each eye.
Yeah, one for each eye, yeah, that's right, yeah.
You would assume. So it should be double what you would shoot with 1080p video, but I'm guessing there's some extra stuff going into there. Maybe they're doing spatial audio around it and things like that as well, which would be really good. But yeah, it's just been a very strange launch. I did notice that they'd done an ad for it, which I don't know if you've seen this.
No, I haven't.
A lot of people putting goggles on in different things. There's a reference to Back to the Future.
Yes, they're on the Apple YouTube channel.
Yes.
Yes, I have watched that, yes.
And that video is almost identical shot for shot to the phone video that they did for the original iPhone when it was launched, which is really nice.
So they are going retro.
They are. They're definitely referencing what happened with that. The original iPhone was also announced in January, and then went on sale a little bit later in the year. But yes, 24th of January this year is the 40th birthday of the Mac itself.
I thought so, yeah.
So there's got to be some stuff happening around that to talk about it, to reference it, to reflect on their history. That was something that Steve never wanted to do. He never looked back but I think Tim has got a little bit more perspective on that. I think we are probably going to get something on the front page of Apple.com, if nothing else.
I've, as we record, so I've got a video coming out tomorrow about iMac. And right at the end of there, I mean, it's bad for my click-through, but right at the end of the video, I mentioned it's just lovely to see that Apple have actually got a little bit of sentiment running through their veins, that when they refreshed the iMac for Apple Silicon, it still had the chin, it still had the bezels, it was still an iMac. And as much as Jobs never wanted sentiment, I think it's a wonderful touch. They've just doffed their cap and said, this little lad saved our company, basically. Mm-hmm. You know, this iMac was the reason we kept our doors open. And I think it's fantastic. I mean, that Mac that I bought, it's the one that no one should buy. It's the 8 gig version. And I've edited 10-bit ProRes video on there. It chugged a little bit, but it did it. I just think it's lovely to see Apple having just those little moments you just said about that advert, and I think that's kind of them just showing they've got a human. I know they're all corporate, we get that, but they have also, under Cook, got a little bit of humanity and just wanting to appreciate where they've come from still in the company. I like that side.
Absolutely, and they definitely referenced as well when the iMac got refreshed to the Apple Silicon version with all the colours. They basically rehashed some of the original print advertising. That's right. For those colourful iMacs as well.
Yeah, the carousels in terms of the way and so on.
Yeah, really, really cleverly done.
So I don't mind. Hope you don't mind me saying, but I've made a couple of iMac videos recently, and the love out there for iMacs is huge. It's almost like this cult club, and everybody wants a 27-inch. And I can't see it. I don't you think now with the Studio Display and the Mac Studio, I can't see them bringing a 27-inch iMac back into the lineup. But I tell you, the amount of love for that machine that is out there is crazy.
The demand's there, but 27-inch doesn't work next to a 24.
No.
It would have to be a 30 to 32-inch to make it worthwhile. And at that point, you're into Pro Display XDR territory size-wise.
Exactly.
And is that really... do you want to be throwing out that display? If you're going to be going to that level of cost, do you want to throw out the display every time? Or do you want to do something like a Mac Mini? Maybe they just make a backpack mount, so you can mount a Mac Mini behind the display.
Makes total sense, yeah.
That would be my thoughts.
Because, of course, last January they released Mac Minis, and I was really hoping from a content point of view that this January I was going to wake up on the 5th of January and find it was Mac Mini, which are kind of affordable, right? So I thought I'd promised myself as my Christmas present to myself, I thought for the channel that I was going to go and get a Mac Mini. Of course, the tumbleweeds have blown through. I say all we've got is Vision Pro. I mean, that's pretty major, but it doesn't really help. It doesn't help me out.
But they haven't told us anything about it.
No, it's big. And that's what we said at the beginning of the podcast, though. It's the biggest release. Well, I mean, you could argue possibly ever as a new... I know Apple Watch was fantastic, has gone on to be a huge seller for them. But spatial computing, it's a brand new territory. And yet here we are, almost sheepishly. As you said, that press release was so woolly. It said nothing. I've read it all. I wrote about it this week. There's nothing there.
It just rehashed exactly what we already knew.
Exactly that.
There was nothing particularly new. One thing that I would be really interested in is these partnerships that Apple's got in place for things like Resident Evil. Would that not be the most terrifying experience in a headset?
See, that's why I wish I gamed, because I know that for gamers out there, it's going to be the most immersive, amazing experience.
If they let people do that with it, because that doesn't seem to be the route that they want to go, even with gaming on it. It seems to be more of a big screen experience for you, rather than... but yeah. Anyway, the other sort of big news story that we've had, and it's kind of ongoing since before Christmas now, but it's the first episode of the podcast, we're going to talk about it anyway, is the Apple Watch ban. So we had a big lawsuit from Massimo, who took it to the ITC. The ITC banned imports of the Apple Watch. We all kind of were waiting with bated breath for Christmas Day for Joe Biden to come in and wave his magic wand and let it all be good again. And he didn't. And then on Boxing Day, Apple went, well, we're going to appeal it. And then the courts sort of said, yeah, okay, you can keep bringing them in. So they took them all off the shelves and put them all back on the shelves. And now the ITC wants their ban back. What are your thoughts on this? This is just such a mess.
Yeah, I mean, it's all to do with the blood sensor, isn't it? Blood oxygen sensor. And I've heard there's been this, you like me have probably been reading a lot about it, and people saying, why don't Apple just go and buy Massimo? And the best reasoning I've heard for that is they don't want it. It's a medical company. It would be pretty much buying it just to flatten it. They've got no interest in what they make other than that one patent that sounds like it. I mean, they should have got a worldwide patent. Whoever applied for a US patent, I think, dropped a bit of a ball. But Apple, we know, have got enough clout to do what they want to do. But sometimes I just think they want to put their feet firmly in the sand and say, no, we're not going to be bullied. Because if they are bullied by one, just one, and a smallish company like Massimo, that's going to open up the doors to everybody, think, OK, we can push them hard and we'll get our way. And I don't think they want to see any bruises on them, would be my guess.
No, that makes a lot of sense. There is another lawsuit that's going on around about the ECG, which is also built into Apple Watch. So, yeah, there's an awful lot of stuff coming their way. I think I agree on the Massimo thing. I feel like if they bought a chunk of Massimo rather than buying the whole thing to do some sort of a licensing deal, surely that's going to be cheaper, and they then don't get the liability of anything that does go wrong on the medical side, because I'm guessing that's really what they want to avoid, is any sort of liability from a medical point of view. But yeah, it's just strange.
I mean, the way we were talking about Vision Pro, it kind of neatly segues into the watch, because there are similarities. It took quite a while for Apple Watch to bed in to what it is now. And I didn't get one until 2 years ago, and now I really love it. But it's this kind of quiet assassin's the wrong term. It's this quiet friend that sits on your wrist. And I like what it does. It is a really lovely bit of kit to own. And I wouldn't want to be without it now. But I think Apple, surely, they're a very smart company. When they decided that they weren't going to be pushed for, was it the 24th? Was it Christmas Eve or Boxing Day? It was one of those 2 days was the deadline day, wasn't it? And I think they must have looked... Christmas Eve, yeah. And I think they must have looked at the figures, looked at all the data and thought, nope, we'll lose less money by taking them off the shelves for a couple of days now. All the sales have pretty much been done for Christmas, rather than trying to fight and the money it would have cost. You know, what we must understand head and shoulders, there's two things that anything that seems like an accident with Apple rarely is. When everything just begins to come together beautifully and you realise you can use this with this with this. I'm sure these things were planned out so many years ago, and they are nobody's fault. You do not become the multi-trillion-dollar company they are by sort of licking your finger, putting it in the air and seeing how it dries. They know what they're doing. They absolutely know what they're doing.
No, absolutely. And this is the Tim Cook, the Apple that Tim Cook built. Right,
exactly.
Try and get the words the right way around. Jon Prosser's video that he did a week or so ago is just incredible. If anyone hasn't watched that yet.
I was going to say, can we just take our hats off? I put up a couple of tweets last year. You've noticed a change. I know we're going slightly off topic. I hope you don't mind talking about Prosser on your podcast.
Of course.
But when he started beginning to do documentary style last year and went into the longer 15, and I wrote a couple of tweets saying this is what he's been waiting for. He is such a consummate reporter, and that's what these are now. And I know you saw a tweet I put up saying if he was in a suit and tie, that was a panorama BBC documentary that he put out. It was brilliant. It was factual, well researched, beautifully shot, wonderfully edited, and no gimmicks. It was just news and facts, and I like that side. I really do. Yeah,
no, he's done an incredible job with it. I do find Genius Bar to be infinitely entertaining. I watch pretty much every one twice. And the guys are great on that. Yeah. I keep getting shout-outs on it, which is really weird. I still don't think Sam knows who I am.
I had Sam on my podcast.
Have you?
Yes. Do you want an inside scoop on how that happened? I don't think I'm letting... Let me just think. I'm sure I'm not letting anything... I'll be careful of the names. Basically, I sent him an email saying, would you come on my podcast? Got ignored. You know what it's like. You send out emails, you hope, and some do, some don't. And anyway, one morning I woke up and found this email, and it was to his agency that book adverts for the podcast. And because my email address ends in audio, and so do theirs end in audio, I got copied into this spicy email. And he said, man, I'm sorry, what can I do? Because I sent an email back saying, I don't think I should be seeing this, Sam. There's quite a lot of information in here. He said, man, what can I do? And I said, well, all I'd ask is you come on my podcast. And we actually spoke a lot about mental health, and it was a really interesting conversation.
Oh, that's really cool.
He's a lovely guy.
I've missed that one.
He's a lovely guy. It was audio only at that stage. So it's still on Apple Podcasts. Yeah. It's a long time ago. Lovely guy, though. So, you know, I'm sure if you approach him, he'd be game for it. And I know you're reasonably friendly with Prosser Jay, so I'm sure there's a good link there.
Nicely for him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll get John. Didn't John make a super thanks or something on one of your videos during
Yes.
lockdown. Yes.
Yeah, so
remember that.
when I first started the channel, I was so small. I was doing a live stream, one of my first live streams, and I just got a super chat that came through, and it was like from Jon Prosser, and I was like, yeah, but it can't be that
No,
Jon
no.
Prosser. And he just popped up in the chat. He was like, yeah, it is. I was like, what's going on? So
Cool.
I was blown away, and then he came on my my first year. We did the iCaversary live stream, which was a 6-hour live stream. He jumped on it. We had Luke Miani on there. We had who else did we have on? Brian Tong jumped on.
I've had Brian on as well. Brian's been on the
yeah,
podcast, audio only. Again, he's there.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we had Ian's elbow on.
I've had Ian on.
all sorts of people. It's great
Love
fun.
them, yeah.
It's such a cool community when people
Yeah.
will just jump in and out like this.
Everybody,
It's good.
you sent me a message. Either just I think it was between Christmas and New Year, saying you had plans for this new podcast, and it's like, of course, I'd love to come on. And that's the thing. The minute you get in touch with anybody, they'll pretty much drop anything to try and help you out and make content with you.
Yeah.
I've not found any bitchiness at all, which is odd because it's all men, and you think it'd be like ramming horns, but it's a really good community. It really is. We've all got one of those
and I
backs.
mean, I'm definitely trying to make this podcast a little bit more diverse. So we have got some more diverse guests coming on, if you like, from all sorts of places, and it's not just male, female, race, anything like that. It's different opinions. I want people coming on here that are not just Apple stands like I am, because I think that's going to give us some more interesting conversations. And on that topic, we've got a couple of not Apple things to talk about as well.
And I just wanted to toot your horn for you. If anyone watching, listening to this, a weekly podcast and booking guests for it, this man is taking on a big ask. So he deserves a big pat on the back.
Yeah.
Because it's not easy. On top of your regular content, now trying to put together, edit, find a guest, it all takes time. So, I really hope this, because a British podcast, there's not many of them out there that are in our field. So I really hope this works for you. I really do. And we just need to give Dave a big clap.
And of course, I'm doing it as well as a full-time job and a family and people around all the time, which is
and obviously you're a stand-up
even
comic
more
now
fun.
as well. So
Well, a little bit. I've done 2 now. I've done my second gig, which is quite good. I've actually got my backup questions, which I bought a book by Richard Herring called Emergency Questions. So if we run out of things to talk about on a podcast, we've got somewhere to go.
Good to know. If I get rebooked, we'll use that book.
Absolutely. But a couple of things that we've got non-Apple related. So we've got Samsung Unpacked is on the way, and I think you're probably in a better position to talk about it than I am. So go for your life.
I've got it in the diary to watch. I'm going to watch Samsung Unpacked. I think it's next Wednesday, Thursday. I haven't quite worked out the time difference yet. It's ridiculously early in the morning somewhere, but I don't think it's too bad our time. So anyway, I've got that to work out. And referencing what we said earlier this year, because again, with people watching this will probably not only be Apple fans, but a lot of them will be kind of into what we do, with content creation stuff. So we're always looking for things to make videos about. So there'd be me hoping I was going to get Mac Minis. Not happening. So then I was thinking, okay, Samsung Unpacked, but then you draw this line, will I actually recoup any of my money if I go and buy it? And I'm not sure, but I am interested in it. I made a video recently where I was talking about the Pixel 8 Pro and the iPhone. And I started off the very first frame of the video saying, if you think I'm going to come down hard on the Pixel 8 Pro, I'm not. It's a great phone, but I am an iPhone user. And the one thing that I wanted to do last year through trying Android was to find out what it was about, and was I missing out on anything, and were we missing something in the iOS camp? And they're very different. I've come to the conclusion I think you buy a phone partly to suit your personality and your character. If you're the sort of person that loves sitting down, tinkering with the phone, personalising it, tweaking it to your heart's content, probably going to go Android. At the end of the day, if you're looking at the cameras, any of the top 3 flagships are going to give you stunning results. I've not shot in 8K on Samsung, but we know it's capable of it. Whether it can beat what I'm getting ProRes log, I don't know. But just suffice to say, cameras are all good. Messages aren't a problem. If you're so concerned about iMessage, use Telegram, use DMs on Twitter. It's not an issue. It really doesn't be. So I think the phones do reflect what you want. And I'm not the sort of person, that enjoys sitting down, tinkering with the phone. I want it to work. It's part of what I use. And yes, it is a bit more set in stone. But this 15 Pro Max, I think, well, it's definitely the best phone I've owned, best iPhone I've ever owned. And I think the iOS is quick. It doesn't get hot. Battery life, having jumped from the 14 Pro to now a Pro Max, the first Pro Max I've owned, noticeably better. Because I've now got a MagSafe charging tree in my studio at home. So during the day it's on there. But at night, it means I used to just plug in the lightning cable and charge the phone up overnight. Now I don't. It runs for the day. Next morning, it's still got juice on it. I've got nothing, and I love the rounded edges. It's comfortable to hold. The titanium is beautiful. It doesn't mark. They've shifted. It was actually Hartley from Mac Rumors that pointed out to me, because that's the weight thing. He said, yeah, well, they've shifted the centre of balance. So it actually feels different. So I'm really glad I took a look at Android. There's some bits I like in there, and I'm certainly not going to come down and say it's useless, it's rubbish, It works fine. And in the Tensor G3 that I've got in that Pixel 8 Pro, it does its job. Again, if you really want to lean into AI, clearly that's the phone for you. Some Samsung Unpacked, definitely going to watch it. We'll think about buying it, but not with a view to... you're never going to find me putting one of those thumbnails up, iPhone user switches. It's just not going to happen. I think it'd be disingenuous to the people that actually want to watch me, because I'm really, really happy with iPhone. I'm really happy with Macs. Everything's working superbly well. And as I mentioned earlier, I might even think about an iPad this year, which I've always eschewed. But I thought, you know what, maybe it's time I give it a go. So I know I've gone slightly off topic. Yes, Samsung I will watch. I will consider buying it, but only as a reference point, not from point of wanting to switch. I'm really happy with the 15 Pro Max.
No, that's fair. I mean, is it the S24 that's coming
Ultra, that's right.
Do they do their foldy ones at a different time?
No, so they have an August event where the flippy foldies. I bought the Flip, didn't get on with it at all. And I know that's not fair because it is a different kind of a phone. So I've bought that, but I've never used their... Because let's face it, there are three main flagships, aren't there? We've got the Pixel 8 Pro, iPhone, and the Samsung Ultra. So I thought, well, maybe just to get my hands on that, see what it feels like, looks like. The display on the Pixel 8 Pro, I must say, is stunning. That is the one thing where I prefer it, hands down, over iPhone. I don't know what it is. The colours seem richer. The glass doesn't scratch as easily. I don't use cases or screen protectors, which means I've just lost any potential sponsors. But so both phones are getting treated the same. But the actual glass itself on the Pixel is wearing better. There's still issues with micro scratching on the 15 Pro Max. But that's one of the few areas where I could say just on surface level, I do prefer the Pixel 8 Pro. It's just got a lovely, rich colour to it. But, you know, I'm splitting hairs, let's face it. I'm sitting here with two really lovely phones. And although I would say that the battery life is far better on the iPhone than on the Pixel. I've started this week actually using the Pixel a bit more, doing silly things, you know, looking at Instagram and all the things during the day, looking at Twitter. So it's been in my pocket, using it regularly now. And I have noticed that the 15 Pro Max is outgunning it on battery life. Okay.
I mean, I would say, I think the issue with the scratching on the displays, there's always a balance point with anything that's glass. Display-wise, it's if you make it more resistant to scratching, it's going to be less shatter resistant.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's hardness versus toughness, I guess, or I don't know the exact words that you need to use, but yeah, it's that kind of thing where one is going to be more resistant to scratches, the other one, if you drop it, it's going to resist shattering completely. And I would prefer to go with a few scratches on the surface.
They are minor. It's literally when you're under studio lights, basically, you know, you hold it to make a point on a video. I can find the scratches. It's one of those kind of things.
I managed to ruin my 14 Pro's display with scratches the first week that I owned it.
I know.
Because I had
So you don't use screen protectors either?
No, not typically.
No.
Not typically. I quite like a matte screen protector, just the thin plastic ones, because I prefer the feel of the screen. But you do lose some of that vibrance in the image and that kind of thing.
And I just love how they look, and so I keep looking away because my phone's sitting just over there. But I just love how they feel. That's why I don't want to put a case around. Part of the beauty, when you go and pick up your phone on day one, the excitement is how it looks and feels. And I don't want to lose that. I know I am now sounding a little bit like I'm at the Church of Apple, but I just really, really like the touch and feel of it. Am I allowed to go off on a slight tangent? It's a very Apple tangent, don't worry. There's no need to have fear in your eyes. Yesterday, I treated myself to a second HomePod. I've now got a stereo pair.
Is it magical?
The layers of audio. I first put on some spatial playlists on Apple Music, and then there was a new series last night. I'm going to get his name on. Peter Capaldi, Doctor Who. Criminal Record, I think it's called. 2 episodes out
on
right
Apple
now.
TV.
brilliant. I'm a massive Apple TV fan. I watch all of my YouTube through Apple TV, funnily enough. But anyway, I had one HomePod for a year. It was a bugger to set up the first time. Don't know what went wrong. It took a day. I was on with Apple Care. We couldn't get it working. Anyway, overnight. Since then, it's been perfect. So I thought, OK, let's try the pair. And I put it on last night, and the difference, not only with the stereo separation, but it's the layers of audio. When you're watching something that's been clearly mastered by Apple, hoping that you're going to watch it through 4K Apple TV with a stereo pair of speakers. As I say, it was the layers of audio that was just stunning. There was so much depth to it. It is amazing. I did not expect to hear what I heard last night. It is fantastic. And I'm not saying that for any ulterior motive. I had to go and pay my $299 like we all do, but it was so worth it. It is, day and night. I thought, well, the one speaker sounds good. And I thought all I might get is a bit of stereo, genuine stereo. It's different level.
Yeah. I'm still on one HomePod Mini at the moment, so I've not experienced in full force the AirPod.
Let's get you some sponsors on this channel then, because you deserve it. You are the Apple man.
Absolutely, that's what we need. But hopefully towards the end of the year.
Yeah, honestly, if you get a couple of spare quid, you will not be disappointed. I promise you. Amazing.
No,
Sorry, I know it's totally off topic. It was just very relevant because I only put it on last night for the first time. And another one of your videos I watched recently about Apple Fitness. Big into that. Did a workout with my coach Kyle every day. I love my coach Kyle.
Kyle's probably
good-looking man.
Oh, he's
handsome, isn't he?
A fine
he's a piece
specimen,
of meat,
isn't he? I started off with Coach Kyle. He was my spirit animal on there to begin with. I've actually with the custom workout plans, which is the new
that was on your video,
feature. Yeah, that was what we were talking about on it, and I didn't really notice when they announced it in the first place at Dub. But yeah, it makes a hell of a difference just having something that's set and like this is your responsibility to keep up with now. It makes so much more difference than just trying to dip in and go, oh, I quite fancy that, but that looks a bit hard. Like, let them pick it for you. It's like having an actual coach and you just do what you're supposed to do.
So like a PT, yeah.
Exactly. And it seems like they are quite intelligently sort of giving your arms a rest on strength, for a day. So you do a core and then you'll do a hit and then it seems like it's quite well thought through, which, to be completely honest, is just the hallmark of Apple stuff. They don't really do anything that's just kind of thrown out there. Everything seems to be thought through, which is my favourite thing. One of the videos I have on the horizon, I think, which was sort of inspired by Jon's documentary, is doing something a little bit longer. And I think it might be Apple's innovation is the word no. And it's the fact that they don't just do everything that everyone else does. They haven't done the folding displays, which even now we're seeing. Was it Oppo that's just brought one out, or OnePlus Open, or whatever it is, that just the day after they've arrived with everyone, they're just falling to pieces. It's the technology is just not quite ready yet, I don't think. I know they've got a lot better.
In that recent video I was mentioning to you, and again, I'll be interested to take your take on this. I mean, I know we're two Apple boys talking heart to heart here, but multitasking on phones.
Who cares?
Why? I've got Macs around me. If I want to open a spreadsheet, I'm going to open it on a Mac. I don't get it. Is it just a fashion? Is it just something to talk about? Is it something to fill video? I don't know. I know I'm going to be shot down for this. I'm sure there's a valid reason that you need to multitask on a phone. But at the end of the day, it is only a 6.7-inch screen. How much are you going to see on there?
The only thing I would like is for audio to carry on playing in the background a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So if I'm watching something on YouTube, being able to, maybe there's a different kind of swipe that we do that just keeps that audio playing while I go and just check a text message so I can keep listening. That's the only thing I think I would like. And
slightly swinging back just to Apple Fitness for a moment. Time to walk. Brilliant.
Yes.
That is an awesome. It's just become a podcast, an audio only. If you go into Apple Podcasts now, it is.
They've just added a whole bunch, like 50.
I've listened to all of them, I think, pretty much. Okay. And Shaka Khan's on there. You can clearly see I'm a soul man. But Goldie Hawn's on there. Jamie Oliver's on there. One of the Windsors, William or Harry, the one that's still a royal, he's on there. Thank you. Can never remember. much like the royal family. But it's a brilliant series. It really is. Part of my thing is, I'm going to play the little mini violin here. Too much sport when I was younger meant I had to have a new hip put in. So that the surgeon said, look, you can do an Andy, but you're going to have another hip at some point in your life, or as long as you don't do any impact, have this hip, it'll last you. So I went for the easy option, which means can't do running, but I do walk a good, and I go out every day now. Time to walk at least once or twice a week is in my ears. It's brilliant. So if any of your listeners and viewers haven't got into it yet, it's basically fire to watch, and it's just a celebrity. You go on a walk with them, they tell you their life story, some highlights. Stephen Fry was another good one. And then at the end, they play 2, 3, 4 tracks of the soundtrack of their life kind of thing. It's a really good series, and it's just great company and breaks away from the traditional podcasts like you. I've got the list of tech podcasts I listen to every week. But once in a while, it's actually nice just to take a break. And even if it's somebody I don't know, David Oyelowo, I think, was the one I listened to last week, and he played Martin Luther King in a movie recently. Didn't know him at all, but a British actor, wonderful stories, lovely voice, and it's just great. If you want to go out and get some exercise, and the other thing is, I try to leave the phone at home when I go out now. It's just the watch and the AirPods.
Very nice.
Yeah, really happy with it.
Yeah, I guess on that kind of note, one of the podcasts that I listen to at the moment is James O'Brien's podcast, which is, I can't remember the exact title of it, but I'll pop it in the show notes. But he basically talks to someone. It's so that he can talk to people for a bit longer than he'd be allowed to on the radio, and it's quite often people that I've never heard of, but he's had Hugh Laurie on there and people like that, and you get a life story from someone.
And did I just see before we started recording, you just added Carol Vorderman? Is she now joining LBC? Was that your tweet?
She is.
There you go. A little smile. You're a Vorders fan by chance?
Not specifically, but she'd posted on, I think it was the 8th or 9th of November, that she was leaving the BBC because of her like having to have an opinion. You're not allowed to have an opinion if you're at the BBC. You have to be entirely neutral on everything.
I think that's what you said when you booked me for this, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. and that's why I put looking forward to your inevitable joining of LBC. And today she's announced that she's joining LBC.
And last year I went to the London Podcast Show, and James O'Brien was there giving a speech. I watched his keynote. What a lad he is to watch live. He clearly couldn't give a flying F about being there. He really couldn't. See, I saved you editing there. I've been in your seat.
It's beautiful.
But he was literally on stage in his crumpled old suit, looking at his watch. But when he spoke, it was just wonderful. It was so humorous, eloquent. It just lit a room up, But he clearly just was there for the fee.
Yeah. That's his feel, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. He just couldn't look more creased, face, suit, anything than you wish. I mean, the dirtiest of old skank trainers on. It was just a day's work, but he was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Nice, yeah. Well, I think we're going to wrap this up then, because you've already covered Pixel, which was the next thing we were going to do. I guess you're not then officially a member of Team Pixel yet.
No, I am really glad I tried it. It's got some elements I like, but overall, I think Apple have just got it completely nailed for me at the moment. I'm excited with what they've done with Apple Silicon, the M3, and the reason I bought the 8 gig model of the iMac was purely because I wanted to test it in its most pure form. And seeing what the most basic M3 chip can do, I mean, it speaks for itself. When you begin getting either the tripped out version of that, if you go for the 24 gig version, or if we begin looking at the M3 Pro, M3 Ultra, the way they've iterated so quickly through Apple Silicon. An M1 was good. I still work on an M1 Max MacBook Pro, which doesn't chug. I can't really justify buying an M3 MacBook Pro, but what they've done. So all in all, yes, I'm really glad I tried Android because it gave me context. And it made me, when I thought I was getting bored of iOS, it actually made, it's kind of the thing, you can go out for burgers when you've got steak at home. It was that kind of thing. The Emperor's New Clothes looked very exciting, but in actual fact, my heart is always going to be with Apple. It just does what I want it to do, and I know how it works. And when it goes wrong, I've got a slight chance of knowing how to fix it. And all those things matter.
Yeah, I think polish is the biggest thing. It's the iOS system, just everything. Typically, I know there's still the occasional bugs, but generally everything seems to work the way you would expect. Yeah,
I had that one bad day last year with the HomePod. Heavens only knows. It was just one of those random things. Who can tell? But then again, yesterday I put the HomePod in And the thing that took the longest was doing the update. But it just, boom, the little scan thing came up on the top, scanned it with the phone, it was off, it was away at the races. It was literally, I was opening the wine by the time it was setting. It was that easy. It just said stereo pair, left or right, done. And that's what we expect from them. And universal control, I adore that. AirDrop we all know is brilliant. There's so many features that just make it so easy to work. And I try to avoid using the term ecosystem because it's what people that aren't as keen on us, Apple and iOS fanboys, using. I think we keep harking back to it. Yes, it's there, but there's plenty of other reasons that it just does its job so well. It really does.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. It makes a lot of sense, and it is always good to see what's going on the other side.
Yeah,
people keep offering to send me Android phones, and then they never turn up. So I guess maybe they watch my videos before they get to the post office.
Yeah, I tried them. I tried the Nothing 2 last year. I bought the Flip and the Pixel. The Pixel's the one that's nearest because it's a great. There's no design when you hold it. You've got a quality phone. It's well engineered. I use AI, but nowhere near as much as many others do, so I don't need to lean into AI. And I've made the point again, when people think that Apple are playing it, aren't up to date with AI, don't ever mistake them. They are the biggest for a reason. They're just watching and waiting. And when they decide to really lean into it, I think it'd be a case of, hold on to your seats, something big is about to. They're letting others, you said this earlier, they're kind of letting others make the mistakes around them while they just get it right. Why do they want a folding phone? They've got the best phone anyway. Why when it's folded in half? Is my take.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right. Well, Dave, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you on the internet?
Well, you'll find me on Twitter, DTalkingTech. I'm on Insta. I post once a week there a story, which is shorts from YouTube also go onto Insta. So if Insta's your thing there, and on YouTube it's David Lewis Talking Tech and Audio. So those are the main places. And I've got a website, talkingtechandaudio.com. So those are the places you can find me. Oh, and Medium as well. I write 4 times a week over on Medium under my own name, David Lewis, and there's stories there that you might find interesting, and they're 100% about Apple in one way or another. Tomorrow's story is going to be about AirPods Max.
Oh, very cool. Right, well, thank you for joining me. Thank you to the...
Number one. First show. I'm really, really chuffed to be on this number one with you. Thank you. Really does mean a lot. It's the British community. We're standing tough. So I really wish you all the best with this series.
Superb, thank you. And yeah, thank you to everyone that's joined us to listen this week. If you've got any feedback for me, hit me up over on the X, the new Twitter, at iCave_Dave. And I'd love to hear who you want to hear on the podcast next. We've got some great guests lined up as well, but there's always room for more. So let me know who you want to hear, and thank you so much for joining us.